With 2 suitcases and $900 in my pocket, I flew to the US. It was kind of my first flight in my life. I'd never taken a flight before I was 22. Hi, my name is Dheeraj Pandey. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Nutanix. I grew up in PATNA, finished my high school in PATNA, and then I went to IIT Kanpur for my undergrad. I did my undergrad in computer science from IIT Kanpur, 93-97. And then in 97, I basically went to Texas, Austin, University of Texas, Austin, to pursue a PhD in computer science. But then after a couple of years, I went on leave of absence and never returned back to finish my PhD. I was growing up in a middle-class family. I didn't have a lot of the trappings of what being in a rich family meant, and it made it imperative for us to study hard and choose between medicine and engineering. So I chose engineering as my profession, and coming out of IIT Kanpur it was a great experience, those 4 years, because it really bakes you. It hardens you, it kind of infuses a character of steel, because everybody who gets there is a topper of their school, right? So you're first among equals crowd, and it's a very humbling experience. We didn't have enough money to buy an air ticket to come to the US, because the university would have taken care of the tuition and the scholarship, would have taken care of things in the US, but they wouldn't pay for the air ticket and things like that. So there were two really good trusts, education trusts in Mumbai, Jane Tata Endowment Fund and KC Mahindra Education Trust, that basically gave me $3,000 as a scholarship, and I bought a ticket for $1,000 back in the day. Left about $1,000 at home with my parents, and then with 2 suitcases and $900 in my pocket, I flew to the US. Before starting this company, I was basically building software. I was in 3 companies doing some sort of distributed systems, and in computer science, the word distributed systems means how do you use multiple machines to look like one large machine. Common thread in all of this was distributed file servers, distributed databases, distributed data warehouses, was distributed systems. But distributed systems, or clusters as people call them, are difficult to use. So they never became successful products. Distributed systems were always high-touch products. Most of enterprise panes of glass were frozen in time as of 15 years ago. Clunky, difficult to use, extremely policy-driven, and security being the big sort of pillar of enterprise panes of glass. When in the consumer space, it was about delight, end-user delight and things like that. So we really focused a lot on thinking about consumer-grade design. My last startup, there was enough that was left to be desired. In terms of the founders not letting go of the company. We were 3 of us who felt really sort of curtailed in not being able to go and follow our gut in terms of making that into a larger company. And those are the best times to start companies, because by the time you work on your product for 2-3 years, the customers' purse strings open up, because there's a pent-up demand to spend on new products and new innovation, new technology. That basically came about in 2012, 2013, which was a great timing for us to have really done the business, started the company itself. Well, it's the first 7 years of the company, so it's a relatively young company right now. In 7 years, you don't form long-lasting companies. So the next 10 years is really where a lot of the interesting things will happen. The IPO, the public market standing, it's given us a cachet to go and dream more and innovate further. But if we stop innovating, and if we stop dreaming, and if we stop thinking about this as a company that's still relatively early in its life, then we'd be dead in no time, actually. Profound question, by the way. The learnings at IIT, because it's the most competitive time in my life, was IIT Kanpur. Especially because it was, as I said, the first among equals setup, and you had to deliver on the promise of going to one of the best schools in the country, and because a lot of people actually sort of fizzle out. The last 7 years has not been easy, by the way. Just building this business, because there's been a ton of highs and lows. I mean, we've had near-death experiences in this company as well in the last 7 years, and the best thing is that we never tried to find a culprit as to why things failed or didn't work and so on. We just came together, and it created this extremely anti-fragile character for the business. There's a term that I'm learning, there's a word that I'm learning from the book Anti-Fragile that basically says, when you take systems through shocks, the anti-fragile systems actually improve. The resilient systems go back to where they were, but the anti-fragiles actually become better. And I think as a company, as a person, I think all these near-death experiences were great moments of character building for the company. We were working on top of VMware as a product, as an end-to-end solution, and that version of VMware was not ready for the kind of assumptions we made about resiliency and fault tolerance and things like that. So it looked like our most fundamental assumptions about how the product would work would actually not hold true. And then VMware upgraded their software. They kind of came up with a new version of their operating system that basically gave us a new lease of life. 3 years later, when VMware sort of became a competitor, and they looked us in the eye and they said, we have to OEM their software. And we said, we're not a server company. We cannot resell someone else's software at the kind of gross margins that you expect us to resell it at, and so on. And it was a pretty defining moment for the company. Tech is now maturing to a point where it has to humanize. I mean, the fact that a 2-year-old child can interact with an iPhone or an iPad, and it's so intuitive. The fact that grandmothers can actually do FaceTime and WhatsApp tells you that tech is at a point where it can really be relevant for 7 billion people. And the same is true for the enterprise as well. I think we've looked as nerds and geeks at technology as an end in itself, but it's a means to an end. In some senses it's good because of its emphasis on math and science, because in the US we have started to run away from math and science. While in China and India and Eastern European bloc and even in Russia, you still see a huge emphasis on science and math, which I think is the strength of the Indian education system. The weakness, though, is that I think there's not too many good teachers. And self-learning and self-paced learning and using technology in learning is relatively early. And it emphasizes compliance. Education in India emphasizes following the teachers rather than rebelling against the teachers, which is what creates entrepreneurship. So, in some level, we don't produce a lot of leaders from the education system. Leaders still come out because of the fire in the belly, but we probably could create an environment where we celebrate failure. We just become more efficient. I don't think it's going to take jobs away. I mean, every decade we digitize more, we use more machine intelligence, we expect more from software. I mean, think of the software of 1990 versus software of 2000, software of 2010. I mean, every 10 years, every 5 years, we've expected more from what software should do. And there was no internet before 95, and the expectations of software were way different. And the expectations of the human workforce was different. In 40 hours, we can only get so much done in 1990, and we probably could get done 5x more in 2000 and even more 5x after the mobile revolution and so on in 2010. So I just expect that we'll end up doing a whole lot more.